Imagine serving a customer who changes your life forever. A struggling waitress receives a tip from Barron Trump, but it's not the money that leaves her in tears. It's the note he leaves behind. What did it say? Stay tuned to uncover a story of kindness, hope, and the act that sparked a life-changing moment. Comments below, where are you watching from? And if you like and love our story, kindly subscribe our channel, Life Inspirational and Motivational Tales that explore themes of love, unity, and patriotism. Stay with us always for interesting stories. Thanks. Let's start the story. The diner bustled with the usual chatter of customers and the clinking of plates. A typical Friday afternoon in a small town. Sarah moved through the crowded space with practiced efficiency, balancing trays and exchanging polite smiles with patrons. Her life wasn't easy. Single motherhood, endless bills, and the constant strain of trying to make ends meet had taken their toll. Yet she kept going, determined to provide for her 6-year-old daughter, Emily. As she worked, the door opened, and a tall young man entered, accompanied by 2 security personnel. Sarah noticed the sudden hush among the diners, followed by murmurs. "Is that Barron Trump?" someone whispered. Sarah glanced over, her curiosity piqued. She had heard of him, the youngest member of the Trump family, but seeing him here, in her modest diner, felt surreal.
"Dust?"
Sarah asked. "Are you okay?" He chose a booth in the corner, his presence commanding yet quiet. Sarah approached his table, trying to mask her nervousness. "Good afternoon," she said, offering her best smile. "What can I get for you?" He looked up, his demeanor polite and unassuming. "Just water for now, please," he said. His voice was soft, not at all what she had expected. She nodded and went to fetch his drink, still processing the fact that she was serving someone from one of the most famous families in America. As the afternoon went on, Sarah found herself observing him from a distance. Unlike many high-profile customers she had served in the past, Barron seemed different. He sat quietly, reading a book and occasionally gazing out the window. His reserved nature stood in stark contrast to the whispers and stares around him. Life had taught Sarah not to expect much from people, especially those with wealth and privilege. Her experiences had hardened her, but something about Barron's calm presence intrigued her. Her shift wasn't without its usual challenges. A group of teenagers left without tipping, and an elderly customer complained about his coffee being too cold. By the time Sarah returned to Barron's table to clear his dishes, she was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. "Thank you for the excellent service," he said as she approached. "The food was great." Sarah forced a tired smile. "I'll bring your check right away." Placing the bill on the table, she walked away without expecting much. Wealthy customers often tipped poorly, if at all, believing their mere presence was payment enough. She focused on her other tables, trying not to let her disappointment show. A few minutes later, Sarah returned to Barron's table to collect the check. Her eyes widened as she saw the tip line, $1,000. For a moment she thought it must be a mistake, but then her gaze shifted to the note scribbled at the bottom of the receipt. "For all the sacrifices you make, you deserve more than this world often gives. Keep going, you're stronger than you think." Her breath caught in her throat. The words hit her harder than she could have anticipated. She clutched the check, her hands trembling as tears welled in her eyes. She wanted to thank him, but when she looked around, he was already walking out the door with his security detail. Sarah stood frozen, the enormity of his gestures sinking in. Her co-workers noticed her standing there, visibly shaken. "What happened?" asked Maggie, a fellow waitress. Sarah held up the receipt, her voice quivering as she explained. The diner buzzed with whispers and exclamations of disbelief. "Barron Trump?" Maggie repeated. "I can't believe it." That night, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, staring at the note. Emily was asleep in the next room, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. The $1,000 tip was more than just money. It was hope. It meant catching up on rent, buying groceries without counting every penny, and maybe even treating Emily to something special. But more than that, it was the words that stayed with her. They felt personal, as if he had somehow seen the struggles she worked so hard to hide. The story spread quickly. Customers came into the diner the next day, asking if the rumors were true. Local news outlets picked up the story, praising Barron for his generosity. Some skeptics questioned his motives, but Sarah dismissed their doubts. She knew sincerity when she saw it, and there was nothing contrived about his actions.
Why?
For weeks, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the encounter. The tip had given her much-needed relief, but the note had done something even greater. It had reignited a spark of hope she thought she'd lost. She began looking for ways to pay it forward, even in small acts of kindness. At the diner, she started covering coffee for struggling customers or offering a kind word to those who seemed down. One evening, she found herself volunteering at a local shelter, cooking meals for people in need. It wasn't much, but it felt like the right thing to do. The kindness she had received inspired her to create her own ripple effect, no matter how small. Her co-workers noticed a change in her. Sarah, who had always kept to herself, was now the one lifting others up. Customers, moved by her story, began tipping more generously, inspired by Barron's act of kindness. The atmosphere at the diner shifted, as if one moment of generosity had sparked a chain reaction of goodwill. Months later, Sarah found herself reflecting on how far she had come. The framed note sat on her nightstand, a daily reminder of the stranger who had seen her worth when she couldn't see it herself. She thought about Barron often, his quiet demeanor and the weight of his words. It wasn't just the money that had changed her life. It was the belief that someone cared enough to remind her of her strength. Sarah's story became a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of kindness. It was shared widely, inspiring people from all walks of life. Some wrote to her, sharing their own experiences with acts of generosity, while others vowed to do better in their own communities. For Sarah, the lesson was clear. Kindness had the power to transform lives, not just for those who received it, but for those who gave it. As she tucked Emily into bed one night, she whispered a silent thank you to Barron. His act of kindness had done more than help her. It had reminded her of the goodness still present in the world. Now it's your turn to reflect. Have you ever experienced a moment where an act of kindness changed everything? Or have you given someone a second chance that made all the difference? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. What did you learn? How can I hope to be better? If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Together, let's create a world where kindness and compassion thrive.